moved. Seconded. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Board Secretary.
This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda regarding district business. State law prohibits the district from taking any action on any item not on the agenda unless authorized under 54954.2 sub B of the Government Code, and your matter may be referred to the general manager. An individual may also address the board on any agenda item at the time the matter is discussed and prior to board consideration or action. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Your time will start when you approach the podium, and you will be given a 30-second warning before your time expires. If you choose to ask a question during this time, any response by the board will not extend your time. Questions may be referred to the general manager to be answered at a later time after the meeting. In order to allow for a smooth and orderly meeting and allow each speaker the ability to address the board, disruptions from the audience will not be tolerated, and you can be asked to leave. We appreciate your cooperation in this democratic process.
Public comments.
I just had a
non-agenda items.
On non-agenda items.
I just had a question about the John Williford Park. I know that it's kind of
Sure.
I know whatever that was not set up.
Sorry. It's all right. Good afternoon, Tony Kubat. I'm one of the residents here at Rosamond over right by the pool. So I just kind of had a general question kind of pertaining to what's currently going on with the park. I know that there was some maintenance considerations and concrete footings that were damaged. I was curious if there's any kind of plan to repair or replace playground equipment, if there's a path forward for that.
Ron?
Yeah, I think my Director of Public Works talked to your wife.
Yes,
today, right? Mm-hmm. And we've had estimates on the cement. It's close to $30,000 on the cement. It's not in the budget. We're looking at the budget now to see if we can open up the pool again. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The tennis courts have problems. The bathrooms have problems. The playground had problems, but somebody had brought it up. I went out and checked it out. If you remember, a citizen brought up that the cement was buckled and it was dangerous for the kids, and that was my assessment of it. I talked to Allison. She said it could be a liability for us, so we put a fence up around it, and we're trying to work through and see what the budget's going to be for this year for the park, for Williford Park, and see if we can afford anything. So we're moving forward on that.
Is the concern primarily the sidewalk area, or?
Correct.
Okay. In the past, I'd seen folks will come and they have these large circular sanders, and they can just level that out.
Yeah, they looked at that. It's the cost for that too. You know, but the cement is broken up in too many places, and the ground has moved too much, and so we have to. The concrete guys came out and said it needs to be replaced.
Or what concrete guys came out?
Yeah, I talked to Brock about that. We had a concrete guy come out, give an estimate, and see what needs to be done.
Okay, one guy give an estimate?
Just to get an initial estimate, correct.
Okay. Ron, would you explain to the gentleman the fact that the people passed the park, but they didn't fund it? That's why we have a budget problem?
Correct. The budget on the park is, a number of years ago, the community service district took on Williford Park. And there's only so much money that comes from certain homes around, and not the whole community. If we had money from the whole community, then we'd have more than enough money to do the pool and fix the park up and have a summer program for the kids and everything. But right now, the budget is very, very limited. They had to shut down the pool 2 years ago. This last year, we were able, because of the pool closing the year before, and also the way we were doing the landscape maintenance, we were able to open up the pool again. But just by the skin of our teeth, we were able to open it up. So we're looking at it now and talking to the county to see where we can get the funds to actually open up. And before we go forward on that, there's certain things that we just can't do. We can't spend the money on because it's not in the budget for it right now. And unfortunately, getting $30,000 of cement, even though that doesn't sound like a lot for a big district, the funds are really limited for that park.
Okay. Well, any way that the citizens can help, if it's fundraising or just making folks aware of it, we're more than willing to. So
thank you. Yeah,
feel free to ask us to.
Your wife talked to Brock about that. She also gave him a couple ideas. you know, we're looking into, say, if there's any grants, and that's always one-time money. And so we're gonna see, you know, it might get to the point that the county has to take the park back, that it's not feasible, but we're working through that right now. We'd like to keep the park. I think the board would like to keep the park as long as we got the financing to do it the way it should be done.
Okay.
So sorry for the inconvenience at this time.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't necessarily govern the laws of nature that affect the concrete. So, we
Especially with the soil out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll keep, my guy will keep in touch with your wife and, you know, and give her an update if we get anything.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your input.
Anyone else? Motion to go into closed session? So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So let's go into closed session.
Yeah, we're going in here, but we won't come back into open session for
Okay.
any discussions until 7.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome to stay.
I looked at some time, but after
Report on action taken closed session.
In closed session.
No motion. Okay. Need a motion, I make a motion, we come out of closed session. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
In closed session, the board took up item number 1, conference with real property negotiator on the parcels identified on the agenda, and gave direction to the real property negotiator, Rosamond. No reportable action.
All right, gentlemen, make a motion to recess to 7 o'clock. Board secretary.
This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda regarding district business. State law prohibits a district from taking any action on items not on the agenda unless authorized under 54954.2 sub B of the government code. Any matter may be referred to the general manager. An individual may also address the board on any agenda item at the time the matter is discussed and prior to board consideration or action. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Your time will start when you approach the podium, and you will be given a 30-second warning before your time expires. If you choose to ask a question during this time, any response by the board will not extend your time. Questions may be referred to the general manager to be answered at a later time after the meeting. In order to allow for a smooth and orderly meeting and allow each speaker the ability to address the board, disruptions from the audience will not be tolerated and you could be asked to leave. We appreciate your cooperation in this democratic process.
Public comments on items not on the agenda. Approved November 1st during the board meeting. So moved. Second. And made the motion. And seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Director's reports, comments, future agenda items. Director?
Well, first item is discussion regarding the phasing of development piece. I've received a letter from Review Homes, I don't know if you did.
Correct, and also one from David Uzara.
And I don't know if you read the letter. Basically, it looks like they were, I don't know how to say that, they were hit, bushwhacked. They weren't really given the notice they want, or should, or deserve, actually. I don't disagree with them on that. But I got 2 different responses, or 2 different types of approaches on that. Mr. Uzaraga said, well, I got side-whacked, or whatever, bushwhacked, but can you give me a little more time to work it in? So we're not hitting them on January 1st. We're not going to hit all at once with all these bills, and give me a chance to raise some money to go ahead and get my project started to do that. I kind of heard the same thing from Hillview people when I talked to their representative, and I did not talk to the president who sent you all a letter. I received a letter as well from Alan Holbull, but he makes some very good points there as far as what's fair and what's not fair. The amount we put in there, all I'm asking for is to give some direction so that we can vote on this in December, I suppose, about whether we can phase that in so we don't have to hit them all on January 1st. So we can say, let's do a 1/3 increase of it. Well, there's a total increase, whatever that number is, divided into 3, and say you're gonna do 1/3 increase on February 1st, another 1/3 increase on May 1st, and the last full amount would be August 1st. That would give, it would do 2 things. One, that would incentivize people to get their financing in place if they need incentive, but more importantly, I think you know the way the development process works, it takes a while to run things through the county before you get your tentative act approved, before you go to the bank and get your financing, get your loan. In the long run, what's going to happen is the people of Rosamond are going to get suffer because next thing they're going to hear about Melrose on this track or no Melrose on this track because they wanted to finance their fees. I think the people that already have their tentative tracks, if you will, in the hopper, working their way through the process, do deserve a little bit of a break there as far as not getting them all at once, saying, all right, well, let me give you a chance then. It's going to be 1/3 increase on February 1st, another 1/3 increase on May 1st, and another 1/3 increase on August 1st. That would serve 2 purposes. One, would keep the momentum going, hopefully for people who are providing housing that's so much needed in the Antelope Valley, to continue to come to Rosamond and to be part of our community. Number 1. Number 2, that will give them the ability to, I don't know if they have to quote unquote absorb the cost and pass it on later on, but at least they'll know where they're going with the market and they'll be able to work through that in the next couple of years. It makes a lot more sense that way. Let them do the financing, let them figure it out, rather than us to kill the golden goose. You all know the golden goose. There's the golden goose. Let's go ahead and hit them with a big bunch of fines, with a bunch of costs. Let's keep that golden goose going and give that goose a chance to deal with the adversity, if you will, of an increase of from $7,400 in fees to $19,000 in fees. So per home, and I think I don't know what you think about that, but since we're all here, we can all provide our input on what you want to do on that.
Okay, I have a question for the general manager.
Yes.
The fees that we're proposing, what kind of fees does Lancaster, Palmdale have for new development down there?
Yeah, Brock was researching the water one. The sewer one, we're a little bit higher on that, but the sewer one, you have to remember that they're talking about 500,000 people that they take care of. And so, it's, they have a lot of infrastructure and everything, and so it's based on. I think the bottom line is that it's a philosophical question of, and I can get you more information in the December meeting if there's direction for that. The philosophical question is what is the duty, the responsibility of this water district and sewer district? And like I've said before, if you're a city, you want development. You want to encourage development. As a community, you want development. But as a city, you make money from the development. There's more rooftops, there's commercial, the taxes. The government agency that would benefit from the development of Rosamond is the county of Kern. And those sales tax and those things would go to them. So the responsibility is to our ratepayers. And so the idea is that if that engineering report provided the true cost of what future infrastructure is needed as the community expands, then it has to be paid for. And it's either paid for by the developers coming in the impact fees, or it's paid on the backs of the current ratepayers. And so there's the balance. As a city, you can justify that because you have a general fund, you're making more money, and you're taking care of the community. But as the water agency, we get those impact fees to build more infrastructure. But not necessarily more ratepayers make it cheaper for everybody else. They're going to be paying the rates that we have set up, which provides for the administration and the depreciation on the stuff that's already in place.
Okay. Mr. Landsgaard, playing the devil's advocate, you have a 1/3 reduction for the first so many months in 2017, and this is a 2-part question. If all the developers
come in and pay their fees at that reduced rate. And now the second part of the question is, how do we pay for all the infrastructure? Because we're gonna lose a lot of money.
Right, I mean, they have till January 1st to come in, and I'm sure, you know, there's some that will come in, and we've called some developers also and said, you know, look, the fees are gonna be going up January 1st. You know, you're getting close to a project, you got
Well, I guess the bottom line
yeah,
is,
different homes and stuff, and come and pay your fees early, and then you're gonna get it at the lowest rate.
I'd like to ask questions from you, or is it?
No, it was a two-part. No, one, I wanted to explain to you
Okay.
that there's a lot of money that can be lost during your proposal if they all come in and pay that reduced fee, rather than, you know, paying it all, all right? But then the district is gonna suffer because we're not gonna have the money to put in the infrastructure that needs to be.
Well, I think,
And then we have to raise the rates on our ratepayers who have already paid for the system, and that's not fair to them.
well, I guess overall, you can even look at the bigger picture, and I think common sense, don't leave common sense at the door. First of all, due process was not followed, and that's not a good thing. Second of all,
I'm sorry,
due process.
if I could ask a question, though, you said we did not follow due process.
Okay.
What legal thing did we not follow,
We,
Mr. Landsgaard?
we gave notice, 2 days before the hearing.
We didn't,
And then you have people who you could, you should have made a call and say, look, we're making a.
we followed all legal avenues of posting and putting everything up the way we violated no laws in doing it. If you want us to,
Well, let's-
everything go above and beyond, and we have the board's direction, that's fine. But I'm saying as staff, we followed.
Well, it's taking the devil's advocate approach on that. What you're saying is, should we kill the goose that lays the golden egg because our rate for repairs? I think that philosophy is flawed. I think the old adage is all those will rise, number one. Number two, you don't kill the golden goose. The golden goose is the goose that you know, it's just barely got started here in Rosamond again, which doesn't generally happen that way. And all of our history, with the county, the way Rosamond's grown is there's been a big boom in '86, Lancaster, Palmdale, they get their tenant impact tax off the ground, they're building for 2 or 3 years before Rosamond in that particular building cycle starts, because they're that far behind. The next cycle, same thing, 11 years later, 2002 hits, no building in Rosamond until 2004. Lancaster, Palmdale have built whole cities in that time, and finally Rosamond gets a few homes built. This time, it's not that way. This time, everything's been slow, it's been moderate, and there's not a huge rush for homes right now. The only place that is building consistently is Rosamond in this area. I think Lancaster, Palmdale are probably getting on board. We're actually going to curve somehow, and that's one thing to point out. But the bigger picture is, you're going to goose that laid the golden egg, or are you going to say, well, it's better for the ratepayers? No, the other part that I guess is missing is, yeah, we do, every time we add another home to the community service district, we do get more money in the way of ad valorem tax money. It has been going up steadily. I think when we first got on the board it was 220,000, now it's 250,000. It's not a lot, but it's going the right direction.
Okay, one of the things, K&B soured me on development. I was on the school board, and they were gonna build West Park School, and they built 500, a little over 500, or I think it was 500 homes. They built 497 and said, we're not building a school. We took them to court and won. We got our school. And so, you know, these developers cry big crocodile tears all the way to the bank. So you gotta take that into consideration
Well, if
also.
you're talking about big developers, I understand it, and certainly K&B should put a sour taste in your mouth, but what they did was wrong. But actually, Ron's done a great job of correcting that with the homes that are coming on in the area close to West Park. They're actually in the CSA that pays for the pool and the park now, is that right?
I know, I checked on that to make sure.
But I think that's been happening, and as it continues to happen, we have continued input with Lorelei Obiat, who's from Rosamond and the head of Kern County Planning. Yeah, we have a lot more opportunities to work on those other issues that have been nagging at us since the K&B debacle, if you will. We've learned from our mistakes in the past. But when it comes to these rates, you're going to raise them 100 and something %. There's nothing wrong with phasing them in, if that's all they want. They didn't say that in the Hillview letter, but that's what I understood they meant them to say. in overall picture, if we're talking about someone already investing the money in the engineering and they're going forward with the tentative track map, it takes, what, 6 months to a year to get a
I
tentative?
don't know, Frank.
For Kern County, it's a lot faster than Lancaster though, right?
Lancaster has its own development.
Yeah,
Department.
if they ran as fast as Lancaster, they would have a better argument of going.
And trust me, when I was on Lancaster, when I was the vice mayor, I had the fees for developers cut in half. That's what I did. But like I said, we're not a city. If we were a city, I'd be saying that now to you. I'd say cut the fees in half, get the development going because you want rooftops. So when you talk about the golden egg, it's a golden egg for Kern County. It's not a golden egg for RCSD.
It could get all boats rise, and we do get additional money out of the warrant, but more importantly, we do.
But
We are a community services district, not just for water. If you're saying it's just the water ratepayers and the sewer ratepayers, even then, you'd have to.
But that's where the money comes from.
Well, we have these other avenues that we need, that we still are responsible for, although I guess we're not, that every new development comes along, we don't, this street lighting's taken care of by the county, right? So we
Well,
don't.
they get annexed into our LL 82.
So we're all.
So that's
set
taken
on that.
care of. It's all different pots. All the services are different pots, like different companies.
So
So you got water and sewer, that's our main company. We got one park, not a parks department. We have one park, and we have a street lighting district.
And the fact is, the more people you have, the easier it is to work on things, because if you're asking somebody, in a community of 5,000 ratepayers versus a community of 10,000 ratepayers, to chip in some money, it's
To work on what?
On anything,
Well, see, and so the philosophy would be then, if you're gonna work on a park,
right?
but this impact fee is not affecting the park. It's affecting the other bucket of money, which is the infrastructure. And so I did a quick calculation. I mean, say Hillview has 300 homes. Say you had like, I think it was,
But is Mr. Uzeraga correct? It's gonna cost him $3.2 million if he doesn't come up with money by January 1st for 248 apartment units?
I'm not gonna discuss Mr. Uzeraga that was supposed to give me a check for other stuff like a year ago. So
I know.
but if you had, the increase, I think I'm just doing rough numbers, I think the increase in water and sewer is gonna be about $12,000 per home, is what it's gonna go up. And remember,
Yeah.
that was supposed to go up 10 years ago, and this district has not raised the rates. We've been running out of money to build infrastructure. We need a new water tank, we need new booster pumps, we need stuff now. And
Well, we're
so,
not gonna get them, like I said, if we kill a goose, it lays a golden. What I'm only suggesting is, go ahead and go with the rate increase that we passed.
no, you're not talking to me, I mean, it's the
But
other
working
board
in,
members.
but working in, so with the February, May, and August, it works itself in the third, you're not gonna see them running in here with all their money in February. You're gonna have some people who are not gonna get their financing, but they're certainly gonna be motivated.
No, and it's a philosophical stance. I just did quick numbers. If you're talking about 400 homes, because you have a Legacy that has 100 homes, you got, these other homes that are being built down here. Hillview, you said something about 300 homes they want to do. So if you put 400 homes, that's about $5 million that we would not get.
No, we would not get it, we get a third in February, so it would be a third of that.
Mr. McKay was right. If they walk in tomorrow and pay their fees, it's even going to be lower, if that's what it would be.
Yeah, they get the benefit of the reduced fee, I understand.
Absolutely. So we'd be short $5 million compared to what the rate is.
Well, how much money would we collect?
We would collect money.
Yeah, you're saying we're short $5 million, but normally we'd only charge $3 million, now we're charging $8 million. That's
I'm saying,
wrong.
mathematically, what the fees are now compared to what they're going to be January 1st, if somebody paid it now compared to paying it January 1st, they will pay, totally, we will get $5 million less today than we will January 1st for 400 homes.
Yeah.
That's
Today
just-
they'll have to pay $3 million, and otherwise they have to pay $8 million. Is that correct?
I'd have to do the rough numbers again. I think it's
That's correct.
5,000, 2,000, so you're talking about 7,000, they're talking about 19,000. So you're talking about 7,000? We would take in $2.8 million.
So not even $3 million, and we're jacking it up to $5 million additional.
Correct.
What's wrong with working overtime for the first 8 months of?
That's not, it's not
Because
for
we
me to
lose
decide.
money.
We don't lose money, we gain money because people can afford to put their projects in place, that's the whole point.
One of the things you gotta understand, Director Landsgaard, is these developers pencil in a project
They know what all the costs are gonna be. And if they can't build, then what they're gonna do is they're gonna turn around and they're gonna sell their property to somebody else that can afford to build, and build better houses.
No. If they can't build, nobody's gonna build, that's one of the arguments they're making.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't have the water, we were trying to research some of the other fees. I know what the fee is in, for the sewer fees and everything, and it's lower than what we have by a couple $1,000.
Should we let Dennis speak? Dennis? What are you saying?
I'm still listening at the moment.
Leonard?
I have three major concerns, and they've been addressed to a degree. The metaphors and hyperbole, to me, is a sales pitch. When you're using metaphors and hyperboles and golden goose and all these kind of things. It sounds great, but it's not writing a literary book. If their projects, which have been on the books since 2007, if they're serious about their project, they will be in before January and pay our current connection fees. If they're not serious about it, then they'll put on the back burner and say, our investors backed out, all those kind of things. And we have a couple clear examples. Across the street here, about 100 homes paid developer fees 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Oh, there are some developers that have paid developer fees along, and they have will serve letters for water.
That were real small and across there. And
Frontier.
if they would have had to buy those fees when they built their homes, it would have been significantly more because they've been raised. If they're serious about their project, they will come in before January and pay the existing fees. If they're just still trying to find investors, still on the books, and they could come in spreading it out, phasing it out, I don't think would make any difference.
Public comments?
And I would like to know, if you can do the research, what is the developer fees, sewer, water cost to build in Palmdale?
Yeah,
Lancaster.
sewer right now,
It's cheaper
we're
in Lancaster.
about 1,700, I think, lower, higher in
I
sewer
mean,
fees.
just look at them and see.
Right, I know the sewer fee is lower, but like I said, they have
We're higher than Lancaster and sewer.
And then I have one other
We're
question.
$1,700 higher than Lancaster.
And they may be
Be
ready
next
to increase their rates if they see development coming. Because that's when you increase your rates, when you see development coming. And I do have a question for AVAC. Is their fee for connecting to AVAC through Rosamond, Lancaster, has it been raised recently, or is it going to be raised in the future? Or maybe you can't tell me.
I don't believe it's been raised in the last 2 or 3 years.
It's $4,900 per water, is that correct? Per home?
I believe so.
I thought it was 10 too.
I thought it was 10,000.
No, it's 4,000, no. It's 5,000 for ours, 4,900 for theirs, it comes to total 10.
No, I think AVAX is 10.
Yeah,
I can ask Brock.
I think it is.
I can text Brock and see what the answers are. I go by what Brock tells me, and Brock types out the stuff for everybody, and I believe it was $10,000 for a 2-inch meter. It's close to $25,000 for the 2-inch.
Anyway,
Depends on the size of the meter.
Correct. Yeah, on the regular home 3/4, it's going to be, I think, $10,000 for AVAC.
Yeah, I would like to know those numbers
Okay.
when we discuss this further.
Yeah.
But my view is if they're serious, they'll come in before the rates go up and put down the money.
I think they're serious, but the problem is, how much work can you get the government agencies during Thanksgiving and Christmas? It's not gonna happen. I think the fair thing to do, that's all I'm asking for, is fairness, is to.
There you go with hyperbole again.
It's not, I
It is, it
someone
is.
called fairness hyperbole, that's just shocking to me.
And be clear, I'm not making an argument one way or the other. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to lay out the facts as the staff sees it, is that this report said this much infrastructure needs to be built.
You're
And
saying,
like I said, I've been pro-development my whole government career, but, when it comes to the water agency, that, if you're going by that engineer, and I'm not an engineer, and neither is Brock, but if that engineer's report that we hired says, if you get the list of the infrastructure that was in that report, it needs to cost this much money, this is what the fees need to be collected. But that's gonna, and everything else is a philosophical decision on the part of the board. And we can put it up, we can come back, put it on as another discussion item. for the next meeting in December, and I can bring back the information that everybody wants. We'll do a little bit more research.
You wanna do that, board? Sounds good to me. And you make a motion.
And when you say it's only fair,
Well, it's just a
that's saying if we don't do it, we're being unfair.
Just direct.
And to me, that's clearly hyperbole.
So they just want you to do that, bring it back.
Is that the direction of the board? We'll bring it back as a discussion item, and we'll do some more research on other fees within the valley. And so that you have a whole bunch of numbers in front of you.
I think that'd be a good idea.
You bet. And, you know, you can still take action at that time or the second meeting in December.
D2. You wanna tell us about it, Ollie?
Yes, regarding stormwater retention, there's two things that we're not going to really touch on. Was why do you want to do stormwater retention, water banking, other than, of course, flood insurance in Rosamond is outrageous in some areas. And Water Code 325 says he who stores the water gets to keep the water. That's state law. Or the how. That is, where do we get the money to drill to make sure that the water can percolate into a particular area that's good for storing or putting a retention dam. But the one thing I'm going to talk to you about today is the where. Where would you put someplace to catch the water that's flowing in and through Rosamond out to the dry lake? Everybody can see the dry lake at the top of the screen there. And as you know, it all starts in the mountains. If it ends up in the dry lake, it goes out there and evaporates and doesn't do anybody a whole lot of good. If you look in that particular picture there, you can see Willow Springs to Hatchby Road, and then you can see where Oak Creek Road cuts over there to the left side of the picture. That's Oak Creek Road because that's where Oak Creek goes. And what I'm talking about is what Oak Creek does is it goes down and it comes out by the cement plant and kind of spills out in an alluvial plain. Go ahead, next picture. And so let's show that as well. Yeah, it does. Okay, now we're down by the cement plant. You see it gets to the bottom there, and it just spreads out there in the middle of the picture. Part of it goes towards Agent Valley on that side, part of it goes, and most of it goes over the Cactus Queen side. Next picture. You can see there's Cactus Queen on the right, and it makes it way, it spreads out, it comes back out through there. One of the things that's important about that water is, I guess as soon as it makes it past the cement plant, it's in the adjudicated basin. If it's on this side of Cactus Queen. If it's on the Agent Valley side of Cactus Queen, that's not an adjudicated basin, that belongs to a different basin altogether. Okay, to the right, to the next one. And there you see the Cactus Queen. We also see at the end of the windmills there, you can see a little wash there. There's another wash that comes down out of Willow Springs. That's just a different wash. It also comes down there and joins those others as it flows towards that alfalfa field. Now you can still see the dry lake in the background, but you also see that shining light over there. That's the solar panels from up by Lands of Promise, at about 65th Street West, all the way up to 70th Street West, I believe. Go ahead, next one. Okay, there's a bigger picture of the wash as it goes and it works its way past Willow Springs to Ashby Road. Someone cleared off some of the land there. That's why it looks different in color. Next one. And then the water, you can see at the very bottom of the picture, you see how it reforms a little bit there as it goes. If you've been on Bacchus Road, they put a new bridge there. That was one of the topics there, that if you cut across Bacchus Road at 100th Street West and out to 120th, and it runs right across there, and you can see how it goes towards the carrot farms right there for the most part. Some of it goes out to the right toward Willow Springs, the ghost town of Willow Springs. Next. But for the most part, most of it comes in and goes, although some goes past through Lands of Promise, which could be redirected or otherwise encouraged to go on this side if we had a way of damming this stuff here. The ideal place to put the dam, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, toward the middle, that's Willow Springs Raceway on that side. Would be right as it flows towards Willow Springs Raceway. You can see the kind of alluvial, the ditches, if you will. Next picture.
think that shows a little bit better as it comes together there and heads out toward Willow Springs Raceway, and then it cuts out over from 65th. That's where the water would otherwise go if it's not impeded, which we could probably impede pretty easily with a I guess what they do in the San Bernardino Hills is you get inflator dams, and the inflator dams, when there's a rain, you blow them up, it catches the water, makes it spread out around them, and when the rain event is over, you let the dams back down, and hopefully the water percolate. And the area you see right there, that kind of looks white with the little, toward the bottom of the picture there, that whole area, it's probably about, I don't know, probably between 160 and 320 acres, but that's all not farmed, not being used for anything, and it's all got water running into it, so it's pretty much a flooded area in any 25-year storm or more that goes through there. And it would be an ideal place to have, so that at the very, it's in the shade where the dam would be, so if you actually put the dam up there, the spreader dam, it would hold it there and let it go in the ground there first, and then on its way out. Next. That's just another view. You can see on the left the renewable, the lines of promise and the solar plant. Next. Another shot of the Willow Springs Raceway and where the dam should be. Next. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to see. Next. Otherwise, if it doesn't get stopped, we'll go out east of the racetrack. You can see how the water for years has been flowing out that way around 65th and out toward Gaskell on the other side of 60th Street West. Next. And that's pretty much the dry plane that all goes into before it makes it out to the dry lake. You can see the carbon plant in the background and where our sewage ponds are before it goes out to dry lake. And that's pretty much where all the water otherwise goes. And if we can stop that one area, that would be an area that we should look at, I think, at exploring as a place to put the spreader dam in, get the grants to drill the exploratory wells to make sure that it will percolate. And then step 3 would be to expand our sphere of influence and or work with the county on forming a flood control district or something so that that can be managed that way. We are, by our charter in 1966, authorized to do stormwater, and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mr. Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there something in adjudication from the judge that says you can't capture storm water?
Yes.
Where does that say that? I'd like to see that.
Okay. 18.5.14, diversion of storm flow. No party may undertake or cause the construction of any project within the watershed of the basin that will reduce the amount of storm flows that would otherwise enter the basin and contribute to the native safe yield without prior notification of the water master. The water master engineer may seek an injunction or otherwise to impose restrictions or limitations on such project in order to prevent reduction to the native safe yield.
Hang on a second, before we get off there, please. Do you concur in that?
I believe that's what the document says.
That's what the document says, but it doesn't prohibit what I just proposed.
Well,
I'm going to read it. Let's go back and read what it
let me
says.
read the other one too.
No, read what it says. It says, you can't divert water within the basin. Is that right? You can't
Watershed
out
of
to
the
another
basin that will reduce the amount of storm flows that would otherwise enter the basin.
Would otherwise enter the basin. This does nothing to remove the amount of storm flows that otherwise would enter the basin.
Correct.
So that's a good point to bring up, Mr. McKay, but it doesn't apply to what I just proposed.
I did talk to the attorneys. I did talk to our attorney, our water attorney. She's not the water attorney. The other attorney is the water attorney.
I'd like to hear from him because he's way off base. He can't read a simple sentence. We need to get another attorney. That's what it says. It has to be outside of the basin.
I also talked to one of our engineers that's in charge of our water bank, and he agrees and says exactly the same thing.
Would you have something
The
else
key,
to back it up?
the key is in 6.3, there is an injunction of using captured, stored water. And it says only those that are authorized to take that water from the water master, and the only ones, and that's water banking. So what you're talking about is capturing the water in a particular place, and whether it's a legal disagreement, our attorney disagrees with it. He says that this would violate the adjudication of capturing that water before it enters. The whole key is in talking to...
Before it enters the basin, it's already in the basin.
Right, but here's the key. If it's in the basin, that amount of safe yield has been calculated on what you can extract. That return has already been calculated. This is what the engineers told me, and this is what the attorney told me.
The plain language of the judgment clearly does not apply. The plain language of the judgment says that you can't transfer water outside the basin. I understand that. That's not what's happening here.
So if you capture the water, what are you going to do with the water once it percolates?
The water stays in the ground, it doesn't go out to the dry lake.
Correct.
And evaporate.
Correct. And then what's going to happen with the water that's in the ground?
Pursuant to Water Code Section 325,
Pursuant
that
to the
belongs to us.
adjudication, you have to go through the water master in order to pump the water out as a water bank.
Well, it's not a water bank. We keep the water. We're under, by the state law,
By
By
putting water
state
in,
law-
by putting in the water in the
by
ground.
state law,
Okay.
including Article 10,
That's fine.
we're
I'm not,
entitled to keep the law.
I can have our water attorney come and you can.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from him, and I'd especially like to hear him expound on Article 10 of the state constitution, which
I
says,
think that's a good idea.
which basically says you can't waste water. And if you want, if he thinks it's a good idea, let the water go out there and disappear.
And I discussed with the engineer because I agree with one aspect of it is that it's all water banking. That is a water bank. You're putting the water in the ground, you're pumping it out later. Now the idea that as it flows out there, if someone on the field and some would evaporate, right, rather than if we put it in another place where it percolated faster. Of course, when you talk about that flow, you're also talking about a thick amount of water rather than a short amount of water. So I talked to the engineer about that, and he says it's basically chasing windmills. The difference between how much is going to evaporate if it goes out into the alluvial plain and how much you could really calculate and the cost of doing it. And this was Mark Bueller, the guy who runs.
We compete with this as far as the water being stored, what you're saying.
No, they wouldn't compete with it. They don't get that water.
Well, we would.
Yeah.
And it would go to our credit. It would necessarily be something we'd have to pump
But
out.
under the adjudication, it's still a water bank, and we'd have to get permission from the water master.
I don't think the water master would go against the state constitution, Article 10, number 1. I don't think he has, if he wants to fight with the water code under 325, I understand there's a ability for him to do that. But
I'm just saying, I'm just giving
Water
the
code
board
says-
the information after I pass it on to him, the information explaining it, and.
well, like I said, what you quoted there says, doesn't apply to this case. This doesn't talk about taking water and moving it to another basin. It stays,
Correct,
it all
but if it
stays,
goes,
it
but
doesn't.
like they said, if it goes into the basin, it's the natural flow, return flow. That's already been calculated what the safe native yield should be.
Well, no, there's no such thing as what the native safe yield should be. It's
The judge calculated what it should be based on what they calculated, the natural return
what he
flow.
believes it is. He doesn't say it should.
What he believes it is. I'm not saying he's right.
I think that everybody
I'm the
would
one
agree,
that-
it should be higher if we could. He talked to Nebebecker, it should be twice that.
You know what? I'm the one that, I was negotiating this 10 years ago, and I fought for a higher safe yield. The judge and his engineers decided to do it here. We have this court order.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, we know that if water stays in the hills longer, it goes into the ground better than if it goes all the way out to the dry lake and evaporates.
That's why I said the only difference that you could claim, according to the attorneys also and the engineer, is the calculation of what water you think would have evaporated but for you capturing it. And the engineer says you're basically chasing windmills. The cost of it, plus if you capture a basin, you remember when you and I talked to the farmer also, if you have a basin to just capture the water, you can't water bank from right there. You're going to have to pump that water over to another basin because that is going to have silt and mud and it's going to clog up your water bank instantly after the first
Well,
flood.
it's not a water bank. You just put a spreader dam up there to keep the water from going all the way through.
But you want it to percolate.
Well, the idea is to keep it there for a while to go down before it goes out, so it doesn't go out there, yeah. But
all
the other
intents
thing,
and purposes, that's a water
but
bank.
the other reason to do that, you gotta look at,
Okay.
why, is we are in charge of stormwater, number one. Number two, the FEMA says great number of homes in Rosamond must pay flood insurance, $1,500 a year, I think, that they wouldn't have to pay. If we could figure out a way to better
Actually, they would. FEMA would have to come out and remap the entire area, and they only do it once every 10 years. I just went through a big essay with FEMA.
Well, every 10 years is better than what I thought, so that's better.
That's only if a engineering survey is deemed feasible.
Well, we wouldn't get to that point unless we actually had
They wouldn't do it for that.
well,
They just redid Rosamond 3 years ago.
well, they did.
Yes, they did. That's why most of West Park is no longer a flood zone. Okay, it moved over and it follows the freeway now. And it comes right through over by the high school and stops right before the high school. And there's one other location there is a flood zone.
And the idea went through in 1992, the first time they changed FEMA. It was because developers got together and said, hey, this is our plan, this is what we have, this is why it doesn't work. And FEMA, who just basically went out there, kind of drew pictures to begin with back in the day, changed what they had there because it actually has some input. Yeah, you might not, this is not going to happen overnight, and I don't think it's a priority for us as a board, but it's something that
One question.
that we need to start working on. The basic thing we need to start working on is getting a grant from through the U.S. Geological Service so they can actually go out there and drill the holes and see if there is percolable to begin with.
Whose property?
It's not ours.
What kind of cost you talking?
What kind of cost we're talking? We're talking the cost of drilling the test wells about 80, 90, maybe 200 feet to see if the percolation occurs.
Between 30 and 100,000 per well? See if it percolate?
They said about 20,000, 25,000 a well.
No, you have to talk, it takes more to find out a percolation, just.
Yeah, there's a lot more to
They
that.
wouldn't have to be that deep.
The key thing is,
percolation.
where would the money come from? There is no money in the budget or at all.
There is money through grants. I talked to the USGS guys last year. They said, get a grant together. There's money out there. They do
If
that.
you were able to obtain it.
Yeah, well, there's money that's attainable through a grant. I guess that's my point. So I'm not saying it's a front burner item, but I think it's something that needs to be considered.
And to look at it, to go after it,
And certainly
it
it's something.
requires staff to put hours and time into it, which is a cost.
Right. Unless you have something somebody's gonna write grants, but it's something that needs to be put, at least be started, find out what the grant process is. I understand that that's what our engineers normally do. We don't have an engineer yet, you're aware of that. This is one thing that's been missing when you were on the board, the first go around, you had Van Horn here from AVEC, who's now the engineer at AVEC, at every meeting, every other meeting, when it's not laying out what actually is going on with what size line you need to put in where, how need to be put in there, why you'd actually have an increase in fees, where the increase in fees are going to go to. Those things actually made sense. This last engineering report, and I'm getting a little bit off base, was way out of lull on that. We need to get somebody who's going to be serious about being our engineer. But we have an engineer that is supposed to present something to us on water at the first of the year, September 1st. And they were supposed to come back next week. We haven't heard from them. They haven't come back in October. They haven't come back in November.
Who's this?
I'm talking about GEI. They're not here. We had a water plan that was supposed to be put together. You recall that? It's not here. It's not been approved.
Correct.
We haven't looked at it.
Correct, because we're still working on it. Our staff.
Our staff is making it. Yeah, but
Is making corrections.
and I appreciate that, but at some point in time, maybe we need to look at getting an in-house engineer, or maybe not in-house, but I think what we have with Ben Horn, he would come once a meeting and explain what's going on engineering-wise to us. That's not been happening. And
We can pay for an engineer to come in here every single meeting, but the cost of that for what they're gonna tell you is huge compared to the minimal amount of the information that you're actually asking for.
Well,
We bring them in when they have to do
we
it.
need to have the information for functions of board. If we don't have the information, I don't know, yeah, you were on the board when you had an engineer, was that helpful or not?
Yes, it was.
And was it worth it?
I don't remember what the cost was. so-
Maybe the bottom line, Rosamond went from being 4 square miles with this engineer, to being 30 square miles with this engineer. It helps to have someone who helps you plan, because there's no way that board would ever step out and say, we're gonna do that without the backing of an engineer that they trusted and they knew, not because they showed up once a year, and because it costs you, someone thinks it's too much money for them to talk to us. They need to show up, I think, every once a month, and let us know what's going on engineering-wise, and let us know what's going on with these questions here.
We
Because right now,
we
we're
bring
operating,
what's going on with engineering wise, we bring up to you every time something's going on.
we need to have the person and presenting something, not, and not stating
What do you want them to present?
whatever they can present.
What if there's nothing to hear? I can hire GEI to come up here
Well,
and give you an update that I update you on of what's going on with the arsenic, what's going on with the chromium, what's going on with consolidation. If
well,
you
that would
want-
be one thing they could do as well.
If you want to put
But-
budget,
but
if you want to budget that, if the board wants to budget that item, I'm fine with that. I'll
Where were they,
follow up.
where have they been since September? That's one simple thing that they were supposed to be done, and I appreciate our staff is doing it, but as
No,
Dennis
we are
Dennis is
making-
pointing out, that staff resource is being used there, it might be more
No,
wisely spent
That's
on
not,
engineering.
Dennis wasn't talking about the urban water management plan. Ed, you found stuff, I found stuff, Ed found stuff. We're making the corrections to make sure that the document is accurate and giving it back to the engineer. That is staff's job. Just like on the Title 22, just like on the rate study, just like on the MSR, it just is almost finished. It's going to be done here, probably presented really soon. That's our job.
And
We hire an engineer and then we edit it.
And the one engineer we do have is GEI, but the one engineer who presented us the rate increase was not GEI, correct?
Yes, it was GEI.
It was GEI.
GEI is like hiring Stratton. You hired an engineering, before I was here, you hired an engineering firm. So there's people that have specialties. So if somebody's a specialty, like Richard is a specialty in water contamination and everything. So he's the one that was, did the yellow jacket. You have Scott Foster, who's an expert at something else. You have somebody else that's an expert at rates. And so it's like Allison, with straddling, we have Allison. She was not a water attorney. We had Doug. Doug was with straddling before, but he's making more money on his own, doing handling other stuff. And then, but we have Jeff Deakins for employment. We have Joe. We have Colin. We have all these other attorneys. So when there's an expertise that's needed, that even though, Allison is amazing, but when we need somebody a little bit
Well,
of
to
expertise.
get back to the engineer, though, it's nice to have,
Same
we
with,
have to get a local engineer, the GEI's way down in, Riverside, is that why we can't, they can't make it up there once a month?
I don't bring them up once a month to come and just give you an update that I give you.
We saw them once this year, and that was the one they flew. That would be nice to have them come here and make a PowerPoint presentation, what happened, that we could comprehend.
If you want to put it in the budget and have the engineer, I'll pay GEI to come up here and give you a presentation on whatever you want.
Well, we need to have, obviously, they are.
I'm not gonna.
They are in the budget. And just say.
No. The work that they're doing is in the budget, not
That is
just coming up here once a month.
Part of their work is explain what they're doing with their work, and not hearing, it's not a front burner item, but it is.
Right, and then if you're back on the stormwater, the thing is you can do all the research you want on a project like this. But then you have to extrapolate that out of what you're going to accomplish down here and how many millions and millions of dollars is it going to cost to actually build something like this. This is not, how much did CIM pay for the water bank that they have out there? And they're not trying to capture stormwater that's muddy and silty, and they even have a problem with that. So what would be the cost for that, and what would the agency get from it? Not getting FEMA to stop storm, because not necessarily if you're gonna spend money, it's gonna be water ratepayer money.
Well, the agency is responsible for stormwater.
We don't have a stormwater budget, we don't have a stormwater revenue stream.
We have a responsibility.
We do not have a revenue stream to do anything.
We have a responsibility, and we have to work with the county on a lot of things. This is something we probably have to work with on. But all I'm asking is we know, at least hopefully you understand where I think the where is, the how, and hopefully the why. But how has to start with, I would like to see someone get started on a grant. If we have to get a separate grant writer that works on commission or what have you, get a grant application into the USGS or whoever it is, so we can drill those 14 test wells. They don't have to be very deep, and figure out if it's even feasible. Now maybe it's all caliche in there. It's good.
Right, and the feasibility would be also, are we going to purchase the property? How are we going to get the multi-million dollars to do a multi-million-dollar project?
First, do the test table.
But we have to get past the agency's attorney that we hired says that you cannot legally do it.
If
So
he's
you
basing
disagree-
on a false premise, I got a real problem with that agency attorney.
I'm saying
it's a false
our
premise.
agency's attorney has said, and then also talking to the engineer for our water bank, says that it would be illegal to do it also. Now, he's not an attorney, but he is a water bank, and he's been involved in the adjudication a little bit. It's a decision for the board. I can't move forward and spend one dime of any of our extra money, ad valorem money, to start to get a grant or anything for stormwater, because we don't have a stormwater revenue stream at all. We don't have any stormwater revenue stream. It would have to be a decision of the board to move forward, maybe use ad valorem money. After I bring in the attorney, and you're gonna have to.
Well, I don't want to hear from an attorney if he bases his decision on false premises. I think we need to look at hiring another attorney to take care of our business on that, period.
I can put that on the agenda.
I think we should.
You
You're representing to me that he said that clause you just read applies to this situation.
He also said in 6.3, you're not gonna be able to water bank it. That water has already been calculated into what the safe yield is, and the judge is not gonna allow it.
He said he's gonna put it on the agenda.
Okay,
But I'll put it on the
we'll
agenda,
see it on the
and
agenda.
I'll bring the attorney up, and
Yes, well, that's all we got. That's all we have, unless you have other questions.
Public comments?
I want to speak to it for just a
Okay,
second.
go ahead.
Director Shingledecker touched clearly on my concern, and I'm not asking for this immediately, but I would like to know, by talking to the attorneys and talking to the water attorneys, how much money have we already spent on this idea? Because you don't call them and ask them a question for nothing, you know? And how much will we spend if we pursue this just to find out if it's feasible? And if we hire an engineer, and he says it's not, we say we don't like your answer, let's hire another engineer. Or we hire our legal consultant, and they say it's not legal, and we say, well, we don't like your answer, let's hire another legal consultant. That's spending money that, to me, is not wise use of the money.
I don't think that Doug billed me for asking him that question, because he was giving me, you know, he's
Okay.
answering the question on the adjudication. So if he did bill, it's just and we get a very small bill, because remember, we're tied with the city of Lancaster. So Doug answered the question. It was like maybe a 10-minute conversation. We went over what Olaf had said he wanted. We went over what the adjudication said, and then also, well, Mark Bueller doesn't charge him anything anyway, because he works on our water bank. So I talked to him about the engineering aspects of it. And him, as an engineer that did this water bank, says that it really wouldn't be feasible. But that's one engineer's opinion.
We got public
And
comment.
one attorney's opinion. I'm not an engineer, I'm not an attorney. I'm just depending on the consultants that we have hired.
Public comment?
I'm just curious about, Glenn Vincent for the record, what would the fee be to bring an engineer up here? Did you know?
I have to look, it depends on who they send. They have a rate sheet, depending on what engineer it is and who has to speak. You know, they charge us by the hour and the mileage.
Like $1,000, $2,000?
I wouldn't make it, I wouldn't want to guess at all.
I don't have the contract memorized.
No, I don't have the contract memorized.
I don't
I have
have
to
the rate
see,
sheet memorized,
that's to make
sorry.
the time and everything like that. I know how much it is for, if we have an attorney come up here, it's about, well, if we get Dinkins, it's $350 an hour, $360 an hour. If we get
Everett's
somebody
is
else, it's
more.
up. Everett's is probably about
Everett's is
$450.
Yeah.
I think he's about $450 an hour. You know, but that's what he also does, phone conferences and
Maybe
stuff. So
questions
that's,
like how much it costs to get the engineer?
yeah, he did, right. And I'm just comparing it with,
I've seen a breakdown on the JPA when GEI comes and makes a report, and they put 10 meetings, 10 meetings, 10 meetings, and sometimes they'll put a 10 meeting, and they didn't even say anything, but they charge for attending that meeting to be your ears there, and it's always several $100 each, $400 or $500 per meeting.
Thank you.
Do you want to say something there?
Yeah, I just want, who owns the land that's out here, and number one, number two is, would they allow you to go in there and drill the test wells? It's their land.
Yeah.
So
You'd have to ask permission.
Any more public comments? All right. General counsel update.
I have nothing to report.
General manager.
we have no updates at this time, except for that the arsenic consolidation is coming along. You'll get more of an update on that at the next meeting, because we have a CEQA document that's been posted for public hearing, and that's to consolidate those other 8 mutuals. Doug Everett is working on some of the water rights aspects of that, because when we consolidate them, we get some of the water rights that's on Exhibit 4. And so we're going through those contracts, so through that, and we should be done with all of the consolidation through LAFCO and with the planning by the end of December. LAFCO can go into January or February, the state said, because LAFCO takes a little bit longer, so we're okay on paying that. That's the one grant. And so then we'll be applying for a construction grant.
So who's paying for the attorney's fees on the arsenic consultants?
The grant.
Assistant General Manager.
Both of them asked if they could have the evening off because they said there was nothing to report. We didn't really have any leaks or construction, but they have, I can give you one report, is they're working very quickly because they want to show that they can get all those water meters in, so we don't have to hire an outside contractor to come in. And John Sides, our supervisor out there, has sworn, he goes, Ron, he goes, I'll have them done by June 1st. So we're working very rapidly. We purchased them after we had their authority, so we purchased them, and so we're now installing them.
Director of Administration.
I have one question before we adjourn, that's where we are. This is mainly for our director-elect, Williford. Normally, we used to do it on the first meeting in December. What is our plan this year, so he knows?
That's the plan, is the first meeting in December, is that you will be, Mr. Glennan and Mr. Williford will be sworn in. Mr. Wallis will start the meeting, and then Lizette will swear you both in with the certified certificate from the county. We'll take a short recess, if that's okay with you, and say goodbye to Al, maybe have some refreshments, and everybody can say goodbye. And then when we take it, Mr. Landsgaard will be the chairing the meeting, and then under the government code, you'll take nominations to elect the president and vice president.
Will we get a kiss one with that when we get sworn in?
No. Maybe Halton, but no.
You like the president?
The president, yes, for the government code, and I'll fill you in on that. It's, our admin code is actually, does not follow the state law. And so I think when this board was elected, the three that got elected 2 years ago, you follow the state law, and so it was our intention to continue following the state law.
Okay, the Board of Directors of the Rosamond Community Service District would like to adjourn this meeting in the honor of all who have served in the military. Vets, would you stand?
Amen.
Would you stand? And your family, thank you for doing it.
Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
we're adjourned, and with nobody's against it or objects, adjourned.